This is light work. Come on, spill the tea. Yeah. Ooh.
What's good?
I'm Laura.
I'm Dee, and welcome to Spill the Tea with Laura and Dee.
All right, so what are we going to be chatting about today?
I'm glad you asked. How to not get fucked.
We are going to talk about if you're needing to sell quickly, how to protect yourself in each of those situations. So taxes. Got a tax lien on your property.
Mm-hmm.
Stressed out about having to pay that tax lien. What happens to them if they don't pay the tax lien in year one?
Yeah, so it really depends on your state. If you're in Georgia, you've really got about 2 years. It's called your redemption period. Now, during that time, a lot of stuff can be going on. Obviously, your tax title can get sold. So then now someone has claim to your property. And essentially that redemption period, what that means is within the 2 years, if you go and pay the original tax plus the fees, plus any late fees, plus all the interest, and you give that to, generally it's an investor that picked it up. And if they don't pick it up, the state holds it. Then at that point, you essentially can redeem your property, hence the redemption period. But obviously, if you miss that period, at that point, you've lost that house.
Yes. But they do have to buy your tax liens for 2 years in the state of Georgia. And so if you know that you're up against potentially not being able to pay your lien, odds are it won't be purchased the first month. A lot of times they sit on the shelf for a while. The foreclosure normally doesn't happen if the state purchases your tax liens. It's normally only if a private investor does, right?
If an investor, they have all the reason to just jump in. It's like, all right, this is my house now.
Correct. So, but know that you've got the 2 years to pay it back. So create a payment plan and plan for that. So just, it's something you can stop even if it starts to happen. Mm-hmm. The next one is foreclosures. So the foreclosure rate for years, the whole time I had my real estate license, was under 1% of the market. We are now hitting about 2% of the market, which means the foreclosure rates, correct, they are going up. So more people are getting foreclosed on because a lot of times hooking up with a realtor, a listing specialist who understands how to work with the bank and how to work through the foreclosure process is going to be your best bet if you can't stop the foreclosure by paying the bank off. So obviously, pay the bank off if you can, borrow money from family, from friends. If you can take it out on a credit card, it's a lot better to file bankruptcy on a credit card. You don't lose your house that way. Not saying to do that, I'm just saying it is an option. If you're going into foreclosure and you do want to stop it, there are some things that the realtors who kind of work in this circle can help with. A lot of times, if you're in pre-foreclosure and the realtor knows how to network and work with the bank and have the right kind of conversations, they can slow down or stop that foreclosure if you're willing to list the property. So listing with somebody who understands about selling a property during what's called a short sale or a foreclosure is super important because it's not a typical sale. There's a lot more steps, a lot more of the process that kind of happens behind the scenes with the bank. And so a lot of times a person can sell their home in pre-foreclosure or what's called a short sale, meaning your realtor has worked with the bank, you've proven a hardship, and from there, the bank has agreed to take less than what you owe, and that's actually called a short sale. Now, if it does get to foreclosure and you are getting foreclosed on, the bank wants you out of the house, you didn't get to sell your property for whatever reason, there are also some things that you can do. You can ask the bank to buy your keys, so that's something that will help. If you agree to get out peacefully, a lot of times the bank will buy your keys for a couple $100 a key. What their objective is to have you move out of the house as peacefully as possible and give you some money to be able to help with the down payment. It's kind of their process. That's kind of the best way to protect yourself in a foreclosure. Fine.
Third best way.
What's the first?
The best way would be to contact historic homies or similar and see if they can actually help you with fixing up your property to maximize that value before you sell, and then you sell with this realtor.
That is true. That is something we do offer our clients. We will actually come in, and if you are behind on payment, we give you a very reasonable offer for condition. It is an investor offer. However, our objective is to get you to the closing table with cash in hand. So we have a situation where we will share the profit with you. Best way to get it sold, for sure. But again, it's working with somebody who can work with the bank and stop the foreclosure, slow the foreclosure down, and call us before you're at foreclosure foreclosure, like if you see that that's coming, let's have that conversation 2 or 3 months before you stop making that payment. If that's where you feel like it's going, call us. But yes, that is definitely an option.
One thing that can kind of be helpful in some cases is a tax lien investor, a lot of times is in it for the long haul. They may not actually be after the property. They may just be after the interest
20%.
and fees that they all get. And so essentially, they're looking for houses that have building code issues or that haven't broken ground yet, or they're in a really nice neighborhood. And so places where they're actually taking care of the house, because more than likely someone wants that house. And so they want to make sure they get their money's worth out of it. Because if you think about it, there's a 2-year redemption period. Well, somebody has to pay taxes during that time.
Correct.
So whoever purchased that lien also has to pay those. They may recoup it all once you try and redeem, but if you don't, they have to try and recoup that themselves. So a lot of the times, tax lien investors want you to pay them, so you could end up using it in your strategy, right? A job doesn't go as well, or you need to offload it. Well, I may not worry about the taxes because an investor is going to profit off of that, and they may be helping you out. So. Squirrel.
All right, divorce. How do you not get fucked in a divorce? If you have real estate to sell in a divorce, my suggestion is work with somebody who is familiar with that realm of real estate. A lot of times your attorneys will know somebody.
Right.
Whoever you're using as far as your divorce goes, I always say, reach out to them. Obviously, reach out to us. We are happy to help in that realm as well. But working with somebody who understands that process, finding somebody who's very good at mediating, kind of in between the two, is important. And having somebody who understands the timelines. And so that perspective keeps everybody in the transaction happy, right? And so again, it's working with somebody who understands how to navigate the terms and conditions in a divorce. Don't get one. So don't get screwed in a divorce, and try to find people that work well together, right? But find somebody that works well together. Interview agents that will work well on both sides. A lot of times your mediator will also help. Your mediator is somebody who will have a good network of people, and sometimes your judge over your case.
Yeah, and I feel like that's actually a really good point. But to your point, a 90-day contract is going to look a lot less valuable than maybe like a 45-day or a 30-day contract. Right. Even first-time home buyer or, someone that's second, third time buying a house, they may not be looking for that kind of a time frame. You may end up finding like, a local realtor or a Craig that works with investors that maybe have a little bit more of a patient timeline. Right? That a lot of the times can kind of help your situation because, to your point, if the timeline changes like that, an investor will be able to jump on that.
Correct. And then just having that strong realtor who can control both sides without being bossy. But having that realtor who knows how to take control of the situation, explain the situation with no emotion. Because as soon as your realtor gets emotional, everything will blow up. Be emotionless and be professional. And so those two things are super, super important, especially in a divorce situation, because your emotions are high. And everything feels like an attack. Well, and I think realtors get like butthurt when they don't like the other side's perspective. Love the offer, with the exception of the offer price. Everything looks great, assuming you're representing an investor. So I just want to be straight up with you. And so working with that person who can alleviate that emotion, right? When you got to go to a husband and wife who's already super, super stressed out and tell them that, it's just easier to have that person who can navigate that transaction without feeling attacked. Right? It is not like no one is attacking me when they send an offer.
So I guess our last one is probate. So if someone's running through probate or having any probate issues, you should definitely contact Historic Homies.
We love probate. So that is a situation where we do a lot of times work with our sellers to bring the house back to life, because a lot of times the home being sold is a family home. Lots of people in the home, lots of family members. And so how do you not get fucked in probate?
One, feelings are high. Right? Grief. Someone has passed. So already we're looking at irrational minds, right? Because they're just going through something. And it's all natural. It's just the part of the process. It's like, okay, well, if someone's passed, to your point, it may be a family home. Family home probably been there 30, 40, 50 years.
Grandma has mauve carpet.
Right.
And it smells like mothballs.
Right. And it's like if you were to go out there and stick a sign in the yard, the only thing you're going to get are investors. And again, what did I just say? Someone just passed. right? Feelings are high. They're going to have their guard up on investors because they're going to be like, well, you're just trying to screw me. Go away.
Correct.
So it's like having a team with a realtor that's going to be a fiduciary for you, a probate attorney that already knows and understands the process, you know, that is actively working with investors. At that point, what that kind of does is any of those times the house may be outdated, investor kind of steps in, doesn't even really need to change title at that point, while the attorney kind of works on the estate, kind of has the investor kind of come in shortly after, fix it up, and then you get the maximum amount of your value on that. All the while, you know, having fiduciaries working for you,
Yes.
you know, it's like that could be a huge value add because you could be fighting with the family.
Well, that's...
And then also still have a derelict house that can't nobody go live in. It's like, well, what are y'all fighting about? Let the attorneys handle that. Let some folks fix up your house and then have something worth value to kind of, hopefully you're not fighting it.
And understand the process. So if you do have a family member who passes away, there's going to be a lot of predators out there.
Right.
And a lot of times it's not in the best interest of the estate is where it starts. So kind of understanding that process, you know, get through grief, then contact your attorney, start the probate process, and make sure that the person who needs to be the executor is named the executor, and everybody who's getting anything understands kind of their pecking order. If you've got your attorney in place, again, your attorney is going to have probably a realtor, potentially a CPA. Some of these estates are massive. and all of a sudden you're...
file it.
So all of a sudden, you're going to be managing funds that you weren't prepared to manage. And some of these estates, working with a CPA, a tax attorney, and a team is going to stop you from making these crazy little investments or spending the cash or just letting it sit in a bank account for pass away. Parents says, okay, at 25, they can have 25% of the estate. At 35, they get, you know, another 25% of the estate. And at 45, they get the rest.
Right.
Well, what happens is that hopefully your parent or whoever was giving you the money has a plan for that. And so kind of understanding the process, understanding what you're moving forward. And then my favorite line, always hire somebody who's a professional in that realm and who has experience in that realm. Because much like divorce, probate can take a long time.
What county it's in.
Yeah, so you just call the attorney who's on probate.
Fair enough.
Hey, where are we? Can we get the signed documents from the judge?
Right.
Do we know, like, just again, working with that team. There's no reason to add extra work to your plate. Work with that team. And if you're working with, you know, your attorney and your realtor and your CPA and everybody has that relationship and it's a very symbiotic relationship, it eliminates so much headache for the client.
Trying to, even as an investor, trying to like help somebody out. The family could be like, yeah, no, we definitely own this house. We're going to be the executor. You know, you start working on it, then you find out somebody on the other side of the country is the executor, and he's like, who's working on the house? No, get him out of here.
Right.
Right? And then it's just like, okay, well, did you spend money on it? Because you're not getting that back.
No.
You have no claim on that house.
No.
You try and get the contractors to put a mechanics lien on it, but you done at that point.
Kiss that money.
You know, and that's a very simple thing of just being like, well, who's the executor? When was that judgment made? You know, and can I actually see the paperwork on it?
Right.
You know?
To each their own.
You know what time it is?
I can't remember.
Time for question quickies. Okay, so how do I manage a rental property?
I do it both ways. It depends on where the property is for me. It depends on cash flow that the property has. So, you know, our duplex in Rome is totally paid for. It's an hour and a half, 2 hours away from me. I can't get to it quickly, and I don't have family who can get to it quickly. So for me, a management company is ideal. They take care of everything. If you go through a management company, make sure you check their fees, understand what their services are. I would get some references. I would actually say take the time to call some other people who they manage for, see how they like it, and then you can do it yourself, right? Which means at 2 a.m. if the water pipes bust, you get a phone call. And so my Louisiana property, I do manage myself. My dad lives next door. I wouldn't if he didn't live next door. The biggest headache, I think, if you manage yourself is finding the tenants. You got to have a good system to find the tenants, to screen the tenants. I will give Avail a huge shout out. They are a phenomenal company. You put in your listing, they post it on like a 16 or 19 pretty common rental sites. They don't put it on Zillow, which is probably due to Zillow not allowing it. I don't know that for sure, but that would be my assumption. So I do have to go in and list it on Zillow, but I will tell you my leads always come from Avail. You send the tenant a link, they click on that link, they fill out and pay for their background inspection on Avail. Avail then sends you a report. We get a criminal background check. We get a financial background check. We also get any foreclosure or evictions. So we can see all of that, which is great. We collect money through the cash apps. So tenants have paid us different ways, which is fairly easy. I think it's know what your objectives are, know how much you're cash flowing. So I don't think you look at your monthly cash flow. I think you got to look at your monthly cash flow. I think you got to look at what your appreciation is. Listen, we have to talk about that. Real estate doesn't appreciate. It does, but not really. Not if you do it right. And just kind of see what your end goals are as far as that particular property. Because I will tell you, I will buy a house, I will let somebody else manage it, and I will cash flow negatively. That is still a positive in my brain because depending on where
it runs on its own.
Well, correct. And depending on where that property is, it may cash flow negatively for year 1 and 2, but based on the rent increase and the value increase, like, you go buy a house in Alpharetta, year 1 and 2, you may not cash flow doesn't need to be your main driver. I think the entire picture needs to be your driver.
What do you do about, so a tenant leaves, you got to do like any kind of repair, anything like that?
So most of the time when a tenant leaves, if they're leaving on their own terms, wherever they're going, the rent probably starts before yours ends. And if you're a reasonable landlord, her lease was not up until February, right? So technically she owes me February's rent. You must be out by X day in January, even though you've paid for all of January, because if she's going to move in and take possession by Feb 1, we professionally clean and we don't charge our clients for the cleaning. That's something that comes out of our profit. But after every tenant leaves, we have the home professionally cleaned. I love my housekeeper in Louisiana. She's so cute. I network with very good people. So when I call them, they're usually able to get me on their schedule within 24 hours because they know as a landlord, I need to flip things quickly. So we were able to mitigate the roach problem, hopefully. Now in a normal situation, you need to plan to have a 30-day rotation when somebody moves out because a lot of times you'll start marketing before they move out. But then they have until most of the time showing a property with a tenant in it. I would not suggest.
Right.
So be ready for that 30-day rollover or be ready to work with your tenant. And then they get pissed off when you send them the deposit. And
So, next question. What are the tax implications of real estate investing?
That's
a good question. Yeah, so it really depends on what exactly you're doing because that will kind of determine the type of income that you're receiving. So, for instance, if you're flipping a house and you actively participated, obviously it's going to be recognized as ordinary income, which is just like...
What if I flip it with a 1031 exchange?
It would be recognized as ordinary income, and so that's generally going to be taxed at higher rates. It's very similar to being employed, that type of compensation. Also with that, when you're employed, taxes come out automatically, your employment taxes. When you flip, they don't. You're responsible for them yourself. 1031 exchange, in the tax code, it's a like-kind exchange, which basically means you're exchanging two similar assets, in which case there is not necessarily, so the income doesn't get recognized quite in the same way. And in most cases, I believe it actually just rolls over into the next property, and it's almost like kicking the can down the road. I think that's a pretty used strategy. You essentially just 1031, you have an asset, so if you need cash, you can pull out, you can leverage it for debt. Once you pass, if you set that up right, it'll just kind of roll over to your heirs, and could also not be a taxable event. So really in real estate investing, you're just going to be looking at the taxable events. Best indicator of that is, did you receive cash? If you received cash, did it come from debt? Did it come from a tenant or someone using your property? Or, did it come from you selling it? If it was from debt, it's not a taxable event. The other two would be. And so rent would actually be a different type of income. It's not ordinary income. So it would actually be taxed at a different rate, which could be a little bit more favorable than ordinary income. So a lot of the times for rentals, you can have a different structure. But if you do like a pass-through entity as opposed to like an S-Corp, you can end up increasing your employment tax liability. So we have, how do I evaluate the potential profitability of a real estate investment?
Know your numbers.
Yes. If you're an investor, you're going to be looking at what can you sell it for, the ARV. Once you're done, you're going to be looking at your repairs. And you just want to take time to sit down and kind of figure those out. Whatever your process is, generally we'll kind of do a desktop analysis where we just, from our desk, run through, look at the property, get as many pictures as possible. So then that way, when you're going on site, you're just confirm your numbers, you confirm your budget. Transactional cost is pretty easy. And then, your holding cost, okay, well, if you get it on a mortgage, what are you going to be paying? What are you going to be paying for those utilities? How long is the job? If you got to do any renovation work. And you just add those numbers up, and if there's some profit for you, is that profit what you want? It sounds like a done deal. If it's not, you may want to...
Don't get emotional. Don't buy.
I don't like making the deal work. Always.
Right.
Because sometimes when you start to change the numbers around, you start to lose certain things that you need.
Correct.
Right. So like when you start to pull back on your rehab budget, which seems to be the first thing people will do, it's like when you do realize we're looking for an ARV that might be slightly higher than comps.
Correct.
So
Meaning
you
you've got
need
better fixtures, low flow outlets.
Right. Because otherwise you're trying to do gimmicks.
Correct.
Right? Okay, vaulted ceilings. That could be an inexpensive way to make something look nicer.
Correct.
You
Correct.
know?
You don't have to change anything. A lot of times it's just removing sheetrock and following the natural
Correct.
roof.
Correct. And it's just like, sometimes you can go into a house and you can tell that they just did all gimmicks. Right? But
when the buyers can tell it, right? Or the buyers walk in, they're like, next.
Right.
Next. My favorite, know your end game. Know what the purpose of that investment is for. Is it short term? Is it long term? Is it midterm? Is it a flip? What are you using it for? And then have your plan. And stick to it. Don't get bullied.
Absolutely. So that brings us about to the end of our episode for today. Thank you for joining. I think it was a good one. Thanks for joining us today. As always, if you thought this was helpful or entertaining, please like, subscribe, and share. Also, if you have any questions for a real estate professional or a tax professional, leave them in the comments and we will get back with you.
We have an attorney we can pass them on to as well.
Yes, attorney as well. In probate questions, entity questions related to your real estate, purchasing a new home, whatever you got.
Business planning, anything transactional.
Yes, and if you're looking to sell and need a little bit of fixing up, a little help for your house to just get you to that finish line, give us a call.
This is light work. Come on, spill